Hi everyone. Thank you for attending and giving me a privilege to talk about Excel and R. I would like to review first our statistics before I will go to Excel. So this is the first Excel workshop of CLSU Statistical Society. So first, statistics is the branch of science which is about collection, presentation, analysis, and interpretation of data. So, yung part na ipapakita ko sa inyo ay yung sa presentation, analysis, and some part of interpretation. Kasi hindi na tayo masyadong magko-collect since it is very time-consuming. So, again, we remind you, meron tayong tinatawag na population and sample. So, sa population, ito yung set of all observations, while sample is a subset of it. So yung ipapakita kong data is a sample from a survey na nagawa few years ago. So reminder, parameter is a numerical value na gusto nating i-estimate. While yung statistic, yun yung na-compute natin para i-estimate yung parameter. So there are two areas na pag-aaralan natin. Dito lang tayo sa statistical methods. We will apply the descriptive statistics as well as the inferential statistics. There are two types of variables. We have qualitative and quantitative. Why is it very important? So sa pag-a-analyze ng data, hindi ka basta-basta magko-compute na lang. Tingnan mo muna if it is qualitative or quantitative. So paano kapag qualitative? Pwede bang computein yung mean, yung median? Pwede ba yung mode? So mamaya i-discuss natin or papakita natin yan. And recall the levels of measurement. So meron tayong nominal, ordinal. These are part of the qualitative, while interval and ratio are part of the quantitative. Next is frequency distribution. Dito, pinapakita natin yung mga values ng ating variable and then yung frequencies or counts. So, ang i-compute natin mamaya ay mean, median, mode. These are the measures of central tendency. Mean is the sum of all divided by n. Median is the middle value of the array. And mode is the most frequent observation in the data. So, meron din tayong tinatawag na measures of dispersion, spread, or scatter. So, ito yung mga common, but we will just focus on standard deviation, although marami talaga yung measures of variability. Next is estimation. So, sa estimation, pwede siyang point estimate and then confidence interval. So, sa confidence interval, meron tayong range of values instead of one value lang sa point estimate. So, in confidence interval, nag-a-allow tayo ng error. And then, ito yung formula, although hindi ko na di-discuss. So, nag-a-allow lang tayo ng error. And we will proceed to hypothesis testing. And recall that we have null and alternative hypothesis, which are basic or kailangan bago ka nagpo-perform ng t-test, c-test sa Microsoft Excel or kahit sa R. So sa null hypothesis, we have a statement that the value of a population parameter is equal to some claimed value. And the alternative, yun yung kabaliktaran no null hypothesis natin. So, meron tayong tinatawag na two-tailed test, one-tailed test. Dito, tinatest natin if equal ba yung ating, for example, parameter mean is equal to some value. And then, meron tayong tinatawag na right-tailed test. It is one of the one-tailed test. Tinetest naman natin, tignan natin sa alternative or H1 na gusto natin makita if for example, the mean is greater than to some value. And sa left tailed naman, if you want to know if it is less than to some claimed value. So sa research, we we state the research hypothesis in alternative form. So yun yung ginagamit natin. So hindi lang sapat na alam mo yung hypothesis. Now, paano mo malalaman if you will reject or fail to reject the null hypothesis? So we have this decision rule na we will reject H null if the test statistic falls within the critical region. Yun yung nandun sa may red part kanina sa diagram. Or we can use the other method, which is we reject H null if p-value is less than alpha. And usually yung alpha natin is set to 0.05 or kuminsan 0.01. So the steps in hypothesis testing are, first, you need to state your claim, null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis, test statistic and distribution tail, kung two-tailed ba yan or one-tailed. Then, critical value or kahit yung p-value, mahalagang malaman nyo kung paano hanapin yun mamaya. And test statistic computation, so is it Z or T or R? Hanapin nyo yun sa Excel. Also, we have decision and conclusion about the claim. So what are the parameters? Di ba sabi ko kanina parameter, ito yung gusto natin i-estimate. Pero ang nako-compute lang natin, since sample lang ang meron tayo, is the statistic. So hindi lang mean ang parameter. Meron din tayong variance, standard deviation, and proportion. And for this activity, I will focus with the mean only. So for example, testing claim about a mean. So, ang usual lang na ginagamit natin ay yung t-test since we do not know the value of sigma or the standard deviation. So, ito yung formula, pero mamaya makikita nyo na hindi nyo na kailangan makita yung formula. Basta alam nyo lang kung yung process ng hypothesis testing. So, focus tayo sa hypothesis test for one population mean, for matched pairs in this independent samples. So, ito yung mga hypothesis nila. For example, for two-tailed, in-express natin yung null hypothesis as mu is equal to some value. Mu null means any value yan. So, versus the alternative which is mu is not equal to mu null. Sa matched pairs naman, titignan natin kung same ba yung, for example, before and after. Kung wala silang difference, mu d means should be equal to 0. Pero kung may difference sila, mu d is not equal to 0. It can be less than 0 or greater than 0. If we are testing for the equality of mean of two independent samples, we will use this symbol. Mu1 is equal to mu2 versus the alternative which is mu1 is not equal to mu2. Next is the correlation and regression. Dito, we are showing if two variables have a significant relationship. And we can use graphical presentation first before we show if there is a correlation. And then, after correlation, pwede ka mag-proceed sa regression. Basta, makita na may significant relationship yung two variables. So, ang gamit natin na graphical presentation is scatter plot. It is a paired XY data presentation. So, ito yung mga graphical presentations. We have a positive correlation if the trend is upward of the dataset, and if it falls perfectly in a straight line, we can say that the correlation is positive. So, ito tinatawag natin na perfect positive correlation, which is rare. Okay? And pagka downward naman yung trend, we have a negative correlation. And if it fits perfectly in a straight line, it has a negative correlation. So, possible din na yung isang dataset ay statistically no correlation, just like this figure. Pero, possible din na meron kaya lang nonlinear. So, in Pearson's correlation, we cannot measure the nonlinear relationship. So, meron tayong mga assumptions or requirements na kailangan mo nang ma-meet before we proceed to regression. Baka naman yung relationship, so we cannot use the linear regression.